Thank you, everyone. My name is Rhonda Reed. I'm an alcoholic.
Hey, Rhonda.
My sobriety date is May 15th, 2008. And I wished I could say that that has always been my sobriety date, but it has not. I am from the Tarboro area, but my home group is in Rocky Mount, the Came to Believe group. We meet each Tuesday and Friday from 7 to 8. Tuesdays are our big book study group. We go from cover to cover. It takes us a little over 2 years. On the fourth Tuesday, we study the tradition that corresponds with the month. And when there's a fifth Tuesday, we study AA history. Fridays are closed discussion using AA-approved literature picked by the chairperson for that month. And our only open meeting is the last Friday of the month, which happens to be tomorrow night. And we meet in the fellowship hall. We used to eat first and then have the meeting, and the church has put some restrictions on us. But we get together about 6:30. We normally have a speaker from out of town. Wallace is always our October speaker, and we love to have him there. And so that's tomorrow night, and since the church won't allow us to bring food in, we look like a funeral procession when the meeting's over, and we go to Hing Ta. And the owner of that restaurant is very good friends of our home group and gives us the party room. So if you're ever in that neighborhood, want to take a 2-hour trip, we would love to have you up there. I am sponsored. I have a sponsor, a grand sponsor, and on up the line, I do sponsor women. I have 3 sponsees at the moment, and Miss Paula graciously rode down here with me. So I am like really nervous. So I'm supposed to tell you in a general way what I was like, what happened, and what I'm like today. I can tell you that the woman that stands here today is a 180-degree turnaround from the woman that walked in to the program back in 2007. And I'll explain that later because you're probably thinking, you said your sobriety date was. But I'll explain that. And I woke up this morning and I wasn't in jail, which is a miracle in itself compared to my lifestyle before. I wasn't in prison, I wasn't in a hospital, and thankfully I never woke up in a casket. So life is good today. So I'm born and bred and raised right here in North Carolina, all except for about 3 years. I'm from the Winston-Salem area. That's my hometown. I come from a broken home like many of us do. My parents divorced when I was about 3. My paternal grandparents took me and my brother on until my dad remarried when I turned 8. And I was so excited to finally have a mama. My mother, biological mother, when they divorced, I never heard from her again for 13 years. And so when my dad remarried, I was just excited I was going to have a mama. The kids in school would quit teasing me. I'm a 60s baby, and so back in the 60s, it was not common for grandparents to be raising children. And, you know, when my classmates would see that in 1st, 2nd, and 3rd grade, they would tease me. Tell me my mama didn't love me. My dad worked 3rd shift. I never saw my dad except on the weekends. And me and my stepmother did not get along. So at the age of 13, I think there's a built-in switch in us alcoholics that kind of goes off. Well, if yours didn't, mine did. And at the age of 13, I discovered alcohol, a lot of outside issues, and I discovered boys. And you hear people say if a father is not in a young girl's life, all it takes is for some guy to come whisper the right things and off they go, and that was me. I just went buck wild. I turned 13, that switch hit, and I was drinking and doing other things, like I said. When I turned 16, I was grounded for any number of reasons, and my mother called, and I hadn't seen or talked to her or heard from her in 13 years, and she was living in Colorado, and she said, "Would you like to come out and meet me?" And I'm a runner. When things aren't going right, I want to escape, I want to run. I was grounded at the time. I couldn't even tell you why I was grounded. So my dad let me go to spend the summer, put me on a plane. When I get on that plane, I'm smoking cigarettes. You know, they're trying to put me in the no smoking section. Because I'm grown, you know, when you're 16, you're grown, you have all the answers. And my mother picked me up at the airport, and I think what she was looking for was that little 3-year-old that got left behind. And what she got was bull. You know, I was like a China bull in a cabinet. I was buck wild. Had been that way for 3 years. We did not get along. I'm drinking, and I'm drinking as much as a 16-year-old can drink. I hook up with the first guy that is selling what some people call those wacky tobacco, wacky cigarettes, and you know, things just got very volatile. So they brought me back to Winston-Salem for a court date, and my dad, bless his heart, said, "If you really want to go back, you can." And I went back for the sole purpose of marrying that guy, and I got married at the age of 17. Had my first child right after my 18th birthday, had my second child 2 years later, moved back to Winston-Salem, and when I turned 21, it was on. I'm legal. And the booze just became so much more important than being a mom. I should kind of go back and say, you know, we always ask people, what do you want to be when you grow up? Ask kids. And I would always say, I just want to be a mom. I just want to be a mommy. And God gave me that twice, actually 3 times. And as soon as I turned 21, you know, the booze just became more important. And so that marriage lasted 4 years. At the age of 22, I just walked off. No notice, no nothing. Got a babysitter, husband came home, and there were 2 kids and no Rhonda, and I hit the bars and floundered around for a little while, crashing where I could crash. I met victim number 2. That's what I call anybody that managed to get tangled up in my web during them years. I met victim number 2, who had even more serious issues that I decided to indulge in, and I had a 3rd son by him. Me and my mom were talking every once in a while. She invited us out to Colorado for Christmas. So here I went with 3 small children, 8, 6, and a 2-year-old, or actually 10, 8, and a 2-year-old on a Greyhound bus cross country. And first thing she said when I got to Colorado is, I would take that little one if you would leave him here. And I thought, you're crazy. Well, due to some of the things victim number 2 introduced me to that I thoroughly enjoyed, by the way, so I can't blame him, my criminal activity started. I started writing bad checks. I started boosting. If you don't know what boosting is, that's where you steal from one place and you sell it for 50 cents on the dollar somewhere else. And you take that money and do whatever it is you want to do. So in 1989, I had 3 kids that I had absolutely nothing to do with, and I ended up in Raleigh's Grand Hotel on Bragg Street. Now, if you know what I'm talking about, it is one of the worst places you'd ever be. But being 28 years old, I'm thinking I am gaining street cred here, you know. You go to prison, you're getting street cred. And so I went to prison. If you've never been there, I'll give you a little lesson. If you need a good physical, that is the place to go. They will check every hole in your body. They will do lab work and check you for every disease known to man. And so it just so happened my blood work came back and said, Rhonda, you are HIV positive and you got about 5 years left to live. So I had been given an 8-month sentence way back then. When you got out, when you went through the gate, that got cut down to 4 months. So I wasn't in there no time. He put me on a Greyhound bus. The state fair was going on, I remember that. Put me on a Greyhound bus, shipped me back to Winston-Salem when my time was up. And when I got off the Greyhound bus, I went to the closest payphone. Now, if you don't know what a payphone is, they were these boxes that sat in little booths, you know, sporadically, and you chunked coins in them, and you could make a phone call. So that's what I did, and I didn't call family, I didn't call my children. I called those that I didn't need to be calling. In other words, I went right back into the same behavior, and that was my life for 10 or 15 years. Just, you know, they told me you got 5 years to live. Thinking of straightening my life out was not even a thought process. You know, I'm going to go out like it's 1999. You know, I'm going to party and go right on out. So I tried. Trust me, I tried very hard. I got hooked up with another man in 1996. He was married. He was a self-proclaimed alcoholic. I didn't care that he was married. And I became his nanny. And his wife came in one night and found 2 drunks passed out. If you've never been grabbed by an ankle and yanked out of a bed onto a concrete floor, let me tell you, it hurts. You know, when your head hits that concrete floor. Anyway, she split. I moved in, and we ended up getting married in 1998. Like I said, he was a self-proclaimed alcoholic, and I had arrived. I became a daily drinker. I became a blackout drinker. I became a morning drinker. In other words, if my eyes was open, I was drinking. I drank around the clock. I opened my own business, running a dog breeding service and a kennel. And I would hire people to come over and help me do stuff because I'm too busy drinking to do anything. And I'd be out there at 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning. Now, I'm a double-fisted drinker. I get a jelly jar glass, about half that, fill it up with my vodka, whatever I chose to chase it with. I'd be out there just two-fisting at 7 o'clock in the morning and proud. You know, look what I can do. And I often think now, them poor workers probably thought, man, that lady is in sad shape. I racked up quite a few DUIs. From the time I married that guy, I got the first one in 98, the second one in 2000, the third one in 2004 or 2001. Got them back to back, just boom, 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 boom. all across the state of North Carolina. And just no regard for what the law did, said, or anything. So my husband, on March 21st, 2005, that was a Monday morning, I woke up. We had been drinking that weekend, drinking wine and beer, whatever you could get, because on Sundays you can't buy liquor, and we'd gone through our 3 half-a-gallons that we had picked up on Friday. And I woke up about 2 o'clock in the morning, and I see him laying at the bottom of the steps from the bedrooms down to the living room, and the first thought that goes through my mind is, I know he's not so drunk still, because he's got to go to work, that he has done passed out at the bottom of the steps. Went down there, tried to wake him up. Deader than a doorknob. He had started walking down them steps, got 2 steps from the bottom, and just fell over like a tree, is what the coroner said. So here I am at 3 a.m. in the morning trying to call people, and all I want to do is drink. You know, I'm talking to the 911 operator. Please, can I drink? Can I drink? Can I drink a beer? And she's telling me no. I said, can you bring me a Xanax? Can you bring me a Valium? Can you bring me something? And she said no. If you have never been through that, half the county comes. The sheriff's department comes, crime scene comes, EMS comes. It's a zoo in your house. And my in-laws did not care for me because of my health diagnosis. They think I trapped him. So I couldn't hear what he was saying, but I could hear what the deputy was saying that was on the phone. And the deputy was saying, no, Mr. Reed, we are not charging anybody with murder. And so they thought that I had killed him. And it did not go well. It did not go well at all. After that, I went on the suicide plan, monthly plan. Mine was the hourly plan. It was not only alcohol. I got into some much harder substances. My husband left me very well off. He left me set for life. And I blew through half of that in 13 months. I went from 189 pounds down to 118 pounds in about 6 months. So that kind of tells you what route I was on. I was just a walking disaster. I was driving. I got my last DUI in July of 2005 in a car wash bay, of all things. I pulled into a car wash bay. I did have some people with me I probably shouldn't have had, and before I could dig my change out, I looked up in Winston-Salem PD. I had one in front of me and one behind me. And can I search a car? Might as well, you know. I knew what they were going to find. Me and Forsyth County were on first name basis. They pulled me every time I drove. If I drove, I was not sober in any part of the imagination. I was under something, and like I said, we were all on first name basis. The dogs always came to visit my vehicle, and I always ended up in handcuffs. And I cannot tell you how many times between 2005, when he passed away, and 2007, that last time I got arrested, how many times I went to the county jail. It was just a revolving door. I'd go in, come out, go in, come out. And I never tried to quit drinking. I never knew I had a problem with alcohol. I knew I had a problem with other things, and frankly, I didn't care. You know, if you'd been through what I'd been through, you would do these things too. And it was just a a revolving door. I'd call somebody to come pick me up. First words out of my mouth, bring me cigarettes and a beer. And I'd be right back off. And that's the way I lived my life for 2 years. For 2 years, I had a house free and clear from the bank from when he passed away. I had no lights. I was on well water, so therefore I had no water. And who cared about eating? You know? And I got picked up in June of 2006 and went to court. And that judge, his name was Judge Fine, and I had him all the time. Like, God was real sneaky about that. He kept giving me the same judge. You know, I couldn't even, like, pretend. So I went and he said, Rhonda, he said, Miss Reed, actually. He said, I'm going to give you a split sentence. You're going to do 90 days in the county jail. When you come out, you're going to do 6 months on intensive probation. If you don't know what intensive probation is, they put one of them gadgets around your leg. And, well, sometimes. I can't remember if I had one that time or not. Anyway, I was told you do not leave your house after 6 p.m. until 6 a.m. the next morning. I had 2 officers. I had 2 POs. I had one that sat in the office and asked me to give her a sample whenever she wanted one. And I had one that came by my house and checked on me every night to make sure I was there. I could set my watch by that dude. You know, he came by at 8 o'clock every night. 8:15, I am out. You know, I don't even think that guy ever saw me sober or straight. You know, it was the first time he came. You know, I'm not abiding by no rules. Me and the field officer did not have that kind of rapport. I could never produce what she wanted me to produce. And so for 6 months, you know, I'm struggling. I'm trying to do the right thing, but I can't do the right thing. And so when February 28th of 2007 rolled around, I said, heck, well, this isn't what I said, but clean it up. I said, heck yeah, I am off that intensive probation. I am free now. And so nothing changed. You know, I'm going buck wild. April 15th rolls around, and my brother has since passed away, but my brother had came to visit me at my house, and I weighed, like I said, about 118 pounds. He said I was a walking stick figure. You know, he said if I turned sideways, you couldn't see me. All you could see was my head. Anyway, he came to visit me, and unbeknownst to me, he had tight connections within the judicial system. And he went to my PO and told my PO, if you do not yank her off the street, I'm going over your head, because she's going to be dead in about 5 or 6 months if you don't get a hold of her. And he was right. I'd go days without eating. I mean, who cares about eating when you got booze, right? Who cares about lights? Who cares about what? Who cares about any of that? So on April 16th, the law was sitting outside my front door. There's like 3 cop cars lining my, and we played cat and mouse for 3 days. And I'm like, how long are you going to last? And they're like thinking, we're going to last as long as you last. And so on the 3rd day, on April 17th, or 2nd day, I gave up. You know, I couldn't get what I wanted. I couldn't get to the booze, you know. And so I walked outside and gave myself up. And that was the last time I've ever had handcuffs on me. So here I am, right back in the county jail. Me and the jailers are on first name basis. The other inmates know who I am. They always give a bed up for me because I was mean when I was drinking. I was a fighter. I was a snake in the grass. I could cut through you with words. I had the language of a sailor. And I mean, I was just mean, you know. I lived on the code of revenge, and it wasn't always best served cold. Sometimes you got it red hot. So I ended back up in the county jail. And when I went to court in May, Judge Fine again, he said, "That's it, Miss Reed. You know, you've been in here too many times. You don't seem to learn." I had no license, of course, y'all figured that out, right? On 4 DUIs, I have no license, but I still drive because everything's too far to walk to. He says, "You're going to finish that sentence I gave you last year." He says, "I'm giving you 2 box cars, 8 months each." That's what he gave me the previous year. He said, "Got 13 months left." And he says, "You're going to go back to where I sent you last time." So I arrived back on Bragg Street 17 years later from the first trip. I'm 46 years old. Still have the same health issues because it doesn't go anywhere. And I got into my dorm about 2 a.m. If you have not been there, here's another news flash. 4 a.m. the whistle's blowing. They don't care how much sleep you had. They don't care nothing. You get up and you got like 15 minutes to get your stuff in order so you can march to the chow hall. And I remember laying on that bunk thinking, how did I get back here? Like, what happened? Like, how do I, you know, like again, it just isn't clicking that, hello, maybe because you drink and drive all the time. Hello, maybe because you have stuff in your car you shouldn't have. And so anyway, there I am. About 3 months of being on that camp, I just said, "God, I cannot do this. You have got to send me somewhere else. I just can't do this." And at 2 o'clock that morning, it was in August, the guards woke me up and they said, "Pack your bags, we're shipping you out, you're going to Rocky Mount." And unbeknownst to me, where I was really going was to the Mary Frances Center in Tarboro. If you don't know what Mary Frances Center was, it used to be a privately owned residential treatment center for what I assume is the elite. And I don't know what happened, what caused that to close down. But this lady that ran the recovery program in Norfolk on the Navy base came down and she bought it. And she contracted and made a deal with the state of North Carolina that she would do residential treatment services for women that were incarcerated. So if you had 2 years or less on your sentence, and if you scored high enough on your SASE score, at some test they give you in prison to see how bad your problem is, like it's being in here ought to be obvious enough that it's bad. But anyway, that's where I ended up going. Now, at this sister camp to Fountain Correctional Center, had no barbed wire fence, had no fences, there were no guards. It was almost like a, best way I can describe it, kind of like going into a real nice nursing home. You know, except it had 3 beds to a room. You had a private bathroom. They were real beds, like real twin beds, not the 2-inch mattress on a steel bunk. You got fed real food. And so I was elated. I had heard about this place, and I was elated because I'm leaving the Raleigh camp. And so I walk in the back door and everybody's like, welcome to Mary Frances, welcome to Mary Frances. And I'm thinking, where in the heck have I ended up at this? You know, nobody is this happy to be in prison. And it was a little bit more than I had bargained for. You were in some kind of group therapy or some kind of AA-related structure class from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. We would go out to outside meetings, and on Sunday nights we always had speakers come from the inside. They worked on a dot system, so you get there, you're in your green shirt and your jeans, and once they think that you have step 1 down, you get a yellow dot, and then depending on how you behave, you graduate through these other colors and get privileges. I could not keep my yellow dot, y'all. I just could not follow. I just could not follow the rules. You know, I'd get a dot. And those of you that know Sandy L. from the Wilson group, she was my counselor. And I'd be in the hallway and she would just walk up and rip that yellow dot off of my shirt, and I'd be like, what's going on? We'll discuss that later. You know. So anyway, it comes time for me to be released on May 10th, 2008. They had a powwow. The CEO, Sandy, and other 6 counselors had a powwow with me and my dad. Told me I would never make it. I couldn't follow the rules. I was doomed. I would never stay sober. They would see me again. And so I got released. While I was locked up, I did draw my late husband's retirement pay, so I had a little bit of a nest egg had been saved up, and my aunt and uncle, who I love dearly, they were in their late 70s. They were driving to Rocky Mount and visiting me, and they got me an apartment and bought some used furniture. They set me up. I got out on a Saturday. They stayed with me Saturday, Sunday, and the first half of Monday. On Monday, my dad and his lady came up, stayed with me on Monday and Tuesday. Yeah, Tuesday. Wednesday was my birthday. My dad does not buy gifts. My dad thinks the greatest gift to give a child is money. My dad is not thinking that I'm an alcoholic, you know, but he thinks because I've been incarcerated for 13 months and had AA for 9 months that I'm good to go. So he leaves, they leave. About 45 minutes later, I start thinking, I'm in this town and I don't have any family. I have been locked up for 13 months. 9 months of that, AA has been shoved down my throat. I don't have a car. I can't do anything. And tomorrow's my birthday. I'm going to celebrate. I called the cab company and I told the cab, I said, take me to the nearest liquor store. So off to the races I go. I go to the liquor store, get my half a gallon, because you know pint's not going to suffice, fifth isn't going to suffice. Get my half gallon. I go back home, and my intentions were the same as they had always been. Drink to a blackout, have a good time, wasn't nobody around that was going to fuss at me. And I had my little jelly jar glass, and I can't remember what I bought for Chaser, but I threw that drink back, and that drink came right back up. And that was the most god-awful tasting stuff I'd ever had. I thought, what on earth is going on here? I used to drink this stuff all the time. And then panic set in, shame set in, guilt set in. You know how people that are on cocaine run around and shut all the windows and peep and all that stuff? Well, that was me on booze. You know, I ran around, I shut all my blinds in my house because I was scared to death somebody that didn't even know me was going to come and find out I was drinking, especially after those people at the Mary Frances Center said I would never survive. I would never make it. So for 3 days, I'm moving this bottle of liquor around in my house. I'm changing my hiding spots. I've got it in the freezer. That's not good enough. I've got it in the toilet tank. That's not good enough. I've got it in the closet. I mean, it's just like that fast. The insanity set in. And on day 3, a thought occurred to me. Rhonda, what are you doing? You know, what are you doing? You know what's going to happen. That judge had done told me if I came back again, he was going to get me as a habitual, and I might as well just go away for 8 to 10 more years. So that treatment center had planted that seed, so I knew what I needed to do. I knew where the AA meeting was, and I called somebody. I said, come get me. And so they started taking me to the AA group in the Tarboro area, and I made a deal with myself. I was eligible for a driver's license, believe it or not. And I said, I'm going to buy myself a liquor sickle, a little scooter. And if I can ride that thing for a year and not drink, then I deserve a driver's license. And so that's what I did for 15 months. I drove that little yellow scooter, all around town, sleet, snow, it didn't matter. My first sponsor didn't have a body. She was a figment of my imagination. If somebody asked me, do you have a sponsor? I'd be like, yeah, I got a sponsor. What's her name? And I would throw a first name only, because God forbid I threw a whole name and they knew that person, or that person even existed. So, so this figment of my imagination is guiding me. Of course, we're not doing any steps. We're just going to meetings. After a year, I was allowed to carry the message back into the treatment center I had been released from. And I would love to be able to tell you I did it because I wanted to be of service, but I did it out of a pure ego. I'm going to go back in there and I'm going to show them, I made it. Look at me. And that's what I did. But something happened carrying the message back in there. Now I'm telling everybody my sobriety date is 4/17/07, because you are not going to find out that you were right, that I would drink again, even though it was one drink. And it didn't even stay down, but there's that. So then the Mary Frances Center, the state closed it down in 2011. Amy, my sponsor, was carrying the message and dragging me along. I say dragging, into Fountain, because I did not want to go back in there. I'd done spent enough time behind them places. And 2011, she says, you're taking over. You're going to start carrying this message. And I said, well, I don't know what to do. She says, you do what I did. And so I did that until Fountain closed in 2014. Meanwhile, in 2011, Paige W. and Jerry W. started this retreat up at Medoc Mountain, and a lot of y'all have been there, or maybe not a lot of you. I know Mr. Moore has. It's a spiritual retreat. It is not an AA retreat, but we do work the 12 steps over the course of 2.5 days as a group. So I was up there in 2012. I became bat crap crazy over this lie that I'm carrying around that nobody knows except me. I know that I have not been honest. Every 5th step I did, I lied about that. I lied behind the podium. when I would tell my story. My sobriety date is 4/17/07. And so I was at this retreat. I had a camping buddy. Her name was Kathy Kane. She has since left. And I don't know what happened. Well, I do. God did for me what I couldn't do for myself. Those words just came out of my mouth. I just told her, I said, Kathy, I've drank. So, not that she would go and tell, although she should have done that. I went to my sponsor, Amy, who, by the way, had put me on a TV ban over the summer because she thought my craziness was coming from watching Dateline and all these criminal shows, you know, with people getting caught 48 hours. That's where she thought all the craziness was coming from. So me and her and Susie D, I went to Amy and I said, Amy, I got to tell you something. She said, what? I said, I have been lying about my sobriety date. I said, I drank 4 days after getting out of prison. And she looked at me. If y'all could have seen, I wished I could have whipped the camera up fast enough. She said, well, that explains a lot. And I said, well, is that considered a relapse? She's like, well, I'm not sure since it was just a drink. Let's go to Susie D. So we get Susie D. I'm sure y'all know her out of the Raleigh area. And the only question she asked me was, what were your intentions? And I said, my intentions were to do what I've always done, drink. Drink the whole half gallon and drink into a blackout. And she says, then yes, we are going to call that a relapse, and now you get to go tell Paige and Jerry. And there's like 40 people up there. So Jerry says, well, what are you going to do to make it right? And I said, whatever I have to do. So when we reconvened that day after everybody was doing their fifth steps, he says, Miss Rhonda has an announcement to make. And so I admitted that. I had to give back my 5-year medallion. Amy gave me a 4-year medallion. And immediately all that craziness just vanished. Just completely vanished. Since then, you know, and I wondered in them 5 years why I couldn't ever keep a sponsee. I kept asking them to do what I wasn't willing to do. So I lost my sobriety, completely changed. All my relationships got repaired with my 2 oldest sons because me and my youngest son don't have a relationship. You know, it's kind of repeating itself here. And me and my dad, who I never had a relationship with because he worked 3rd shift. I have 6 grandchildren, and they range in the ages of one's getting ready to turn 15, and the baby is about 8 months old. I bought a house 2 years after coming into the program. I have never, ever, even as an infant, lived in the same place for more than 8 years. And I have now lived in that place for 12 years this month. I have a driver's license. I have 0 points. I have 0. Me and the law get along just fine now. You know, I've been pulled once, and I lost my mom in 2019. In 2014, I went down and made amends to her. She had changed, and I had changed. So God had worked on both ends there. And she got diagnosed on the tail end of February of 2019 that she had ovarian cancer, and it had spread. And 3 weeks later, we were preparing to bury her. And that last week, while she was in hospice care, I was able to be of service to her and to go down there and take care of her, you know, and to do whatever needed to be done. I was able to help take care of things afterwards, and I didn't have to drink. I lost my brother in 2020 suddenly. He was a little bit younger, the one that I credit to God moving in the right direction to save my life. Because another little note on that, my brother had gone to my whole family and trying to get somebody to get me off the street. And they all said that she'll be mad. She'll be mad at us. And he said, I don't care if she's mad. I'd rather have her here mad than be visiting a headstone. And so today I do sponsor women. Unfortunately, there's not any women prisons in direct vicinity of where I live. The Edgecombe County prisons have shut down. There's not a female prison in Nash. I'm not even thinking there's one in Greene County anymore, so I can't get back into that service, but I have held just about every service position in the my home group and in the district. And it's just always an honor to be able to come and talk about that if you just follow these simple directions. We make them complicated. They're really simple. That your life will turn around. I go home every other month. I'm heading home back to Winston-Salem. The second week of May, I go home every 2 months to be of service to my dad. My dad's 83. He can't see worth the lick. And he just finished battling COVID, and so his health has declined tremendously. And I go home, and when people say, what do? I say, I do whatever my dad needs. I don't care what it is he needs. Sometimes all I do is sit there and watch him sleep and drool, you know, and then sometimes he has a list of stuff he wants me to do, because I was a crappy daughter for a lot of years, and it's my turn now to be of service to Dad, to the man that loved me and helped raise me. And my aunts on my mom's side, I have a wonderful relationship. That son, that youngest son, my mom had taken him and adopted him. He has reached out to me. And so my boys are almost 43, 41, and 35. And between them three, I have 6 grandchildren that by the grace of God and me doing what's asked of me every day will never, ever see the woman that their parents did. So I thank you for your time, and Wallace, I thank you for allowing me to come in place of Amy. Thank you.